Something happened to me last night that reminded me of a conversation I had with a friend about why people shouldn't have kids. I live in an apartment, so I'm used to the neighbors making noise, but last night at about 11 p.m., I heard a loud bang on the wall. That's next to their apartment. Whatever hit the wall, it hit it so hard it knocked off two of my paintings. It was then I realized that my neighbors were fighting again. They moved in about 4 months after I did, and I've been here for about 2 years. And they've been fighting on and off ever since. She screams at him, he yells at her, constantly arguing about something all the time. But last night was the worst. It was the worst fight that I've heard so far. By itself, that doesn't concern me. What concerns me is that they have a 1-year-old baby in the house with them. That's unfortunately caught right in the middle of all of that. I was just thinking that that little baby is going to have to grow up and experience my childhood. The same shit I went through when I was a kid. Just sitting there helplessly watching the violence, completely unable to understand why it's happening, or when it will end. What really angers me to no end is that most people are just not qualified to have children, but yet any ignorant idiot can have kids anytime they want, and through their own stupidity, cause permanent damage to a child's mind, and then claim no responsibility for it themselves. I know it's been pointed out before, but the point still holds true, that we are required to get a driver's license to show our competence in operating a motor vehicle, yet there are no requirements for bringing a child into the world that will have to live with the consequences of their parents' ignorance for the rest of their lives. If we lived in a sane world, a license and at least a year of schooling would be required before a person would be allowed to have a child, and even then they would have to pass vigorous testing in order to be approved. That way, children wouldn't have to end up with unqualified idiots for parents. But we don't live in a sane world at all. That's why I believe that even having a child in this world is a form of child abuse, whether you intended it or not. It's almost impossible for a child to be born in this world without being damaged in some way or another. We're all damaged by this world, some to greater or lesser degrees, but we all have it. And that's not even counting the parents that intentionally hurt their children, or the ones that don't even care, or the physically abusive parents, or the emotionally abusive parents, or the narcissistic parents, or the parents that were abused by their own parents and continue to pass on the emotional pain to their kids, or the people that are victims of their own bad decisions and have suffered greatly for it, so now they take it out on their own children so they can feel better, or maybe blame their own kids for their own emotional pain. Even with good intentions, most people just aren't qualified to have kids anyway. Do you have a background in proper nutrition? Do you have a background in human behavior and emotional development? Do you have a background in how to encourage and build emotional intelligence in a child so that things like bullying never occur? Do you know how to create a mentally stimulating environment that acts as a foundation for a child's cognitive development? Do you already possess all of the resources necessary to ensure that the child has what they need to get the best start in life possible? Oftentimes, parents damage their children without even knowing it, and simply loving a child isn't enough. And if you've answered no to any one of those questions, then you are not even close to being a qualified parent. Hell, most people aren't even qualified to raise a fucking puppy, much less a human child. What's even more infuriating is that most people don't even try. They just have a child and then throw them into that goddamn brainwashing factory they call a public school and expect everything to just work itself out. How is that not child abuse? I strongly believe that a child owes their parents nothing, but the parents owe their child everything, because it was them that brought the child into this world in the first place, and it's their fault their child has to face all of the hardships and struggles of this life. Some say antinatalists don't love kids. I love kids. I love them so much I don't want them to have to endure this sad world we live in. I feel that the greatest expression of love for a child is to prevent that child from experiencing any potential suffering at all, instead of condemning them to the death and misery that life brings. You're not doing a child any favors by bringing them here. Anyway, thanks for watching. and be safe as you can be out there.